Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, November 19th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Chiefs Raiders is the topic today. Who's available to play? Why did the Chiefs lose the first meeting? And what gets Patrick Mahomes motivated are among the topics. Also, in honor of John Gruden's bus lap around Arrowhead Stadium after the victory, our group of Sam Mellinger, Vahe, Gregorian, Sam McDowell, and Herbie Teope came up with their lists of famous perceived slights in sports. You'll get a kick out of some of the choices. So let's get going with the show that started as a SportsBeat Live on Thursday.
Hey, good morning and welcome to SportsBeat Live. We're the Kansas City Star reporters who cover the Chiefs get together on Thursday to talk about this week's game. Hey, I missed you guys. I missed all of you guys. Sam McDowell, Sam Mellinger, Vahe, Gregorian, and Herbie Teope's in there somewhere. I know he is. I've already seen him. Chiefs didn't play last week. There's Herbie. What's up, man? Chiefs didn't play last week, so we had the college basketball guys in here. Had a good time talking college hoops, but we're back on track talking Chiefs, and it's Raiders week. So, and a lot to talk about with the Raiders. So I've already introduced the guys, and Sam's in the office. I if I got out of my seat and looked behind me, I would see Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm here, man.
All right. Great. Let's start where we always do. But before we do, let's invite you to give us your questions and comments, and let's talk about the Chiefs-Raiders game, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, anything Chiefs-related, and we will get to as many of them as we can. But we'll start where we always do, and that is with Herbie batting leadoff, talking about personnel decisions, changes, injuries, all of that. And this may take a while because there's been a lot going on both sides, Chiefs and Raiders. Let's start on the Chiefs side, though. Herbie, we've got some news about players returning and some not back yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna bury the lead here. We'll start off with the players who are kind of returning. Alex Okafor is back. He's designated return from injured reserve, which means the Chiefs now have a 21-day window to decide whether to activate him. It remains to be seen if he will be available for this week's game. He's obviously on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. L'Jarius Sneed, their cornerback, he might be back this week. His 21-day window should expire before Sunday's game, so the Chiefs should probably pull him up back to the active roster if they feel he's healthy enough to play. Sammy Watkins, wide receiver, first full practice Wednesday for the first time since week 5. So, the bye week did him well. They should get him back into the lineup, and that should help out that offense. They've had to spread the ball around a lot without Watkins in the lineup. Now, here's the big stuff here. Mike Remmers was limited Wednesday with a rib injury. You had Rashad Fenton, who was limited with an ankle injury. He suffered that injury in week 9 against the Carolina Panthers, so before the bye week. Remmers' injury is going to be worth watching very closely because here's where the lead was buried. The Chiefs currently have 4 players on the reserve COVID-19 list, and that includes starting left tackle Eric Fisher, starting right tackle Mitchell Schwartz, backup offensive lineman Martinez Rankin, and second-year wide receiver Mecole Hardman. There's a lot of stuff at play here. Whether they'll be available on Sunday remains how they do in the protocol system. And the Raiders right now, goodness, they got a lot of defensive players and players on their roster right now on the COVID-19 list. So COVID is rearing its head again. And it remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see probably on Friday exactly how this shakes out.
Yeah, that's a lot of information, a lot of uncertainty with the rosters. The Remmers thing, you would just when you see that on the injured list, you just say, it's backup offensive lineman, it's no big deal. But it can possibly be a big deal depending on the status of Schwartz and Fisher. So are we to think now that Schwartz is back is okay, and that's not a problem for him anymore?
Well, yesterday during the Wednesday's press conference, Andy Reid said Schwartz is not practicing because of the back injury, but the truth of it is he's still on the COVID-19 list. Schwartz aggravated a back injury in week 6, so he hasn't played in 3 straight games. And the key thing here is they're very light on the offensive line right now. Martinez Rankins was a guy who could play swing tackle and he can also play guard. Unfortunately, he's on the reserve COVID-19 list. And when you look at this offensive line right now, who do they have to fill in if Fisher and then Schwartz is out, and maybe even if Remmers is limited the rest of the week, and if he's somehow declared out, they're in a world of hurt up front.
Okay. All right. And you touched on the Raiders. That's quite a storyline going on in Las Vegas and Raider Nation this week. It's up to 10, right? Players that on the COVID list. One of those is Cleveland Farrell, and he's likely he is tested positive. The other ones are on the list because of contact tracing and could play. I think the likelihood of Farrell not playing is good. The other players, better than 50-50 that we're going to see most of those guys on Sunday night.
I don't know, man, because this is such a fluid situation. We had John Gruden on the conference call yesterday, and, he kind of downplayed it. But the Raiders have been dealing with COVID throughout the entire season. Don't forget the league levied a massive fine on them because of how they've been dealing with some of the COVID protocols. But this is a situation, and it's not isolated to just the Chiefs and the Raiders. This is something that's going on around the league over the last couple of weeks. You can't go on news sites anywhere without seeing someone going on the reserve COVID list because it's what we live in today.
Yeah. We always go to Sam McDowell for our wagering, questions. And I think I read somewhere this morning that Chiefs Raiders is off the board right now. Is that true, Sam?
Yeah, it is on some sites. On some, it's still on. But yeah, some have pulled it off just because, heck, it's half the Raiders starting defense.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? That's how games get pulled off the betting board is uncertainty of player availability. You certainly see it with quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times this has happened this year in the NFL because of COVID, but what about? I also heard the possibility of maybe not that game, not the Chiefs Raiders not being played Sunday night. Has anybody heard that suggestion?
I haven't heard it, but you got to figure that's on the table. Like Sam McDowell was mentioning there earlier, is like so many players are missing, and there's no guarantee leading up to Sunday. 5 straight days of testing negative. When did that window open? The window opened yesterday when the Raiders placed all their players on COVID-19. So if you do 5 days, my math is correct. They got to test again Sunday and be negative. This is a situation that has affected the National Football League a lot this year, and the Chiefs certainly were part of this because they've had 2 or 3 games pushed to Monday night. So could it happen here again? Or maybe the league's going to have to scramble to figure out who's going to fill that Sunday night spot. But it's you got to figure it's on the table.
The other thing about that's interesting, the Chiefs, if I remember this right, we're in that situation as the home team, at least with the Patriots. And if I recall correctly, the Patriots, it was so last minute, right? They ended up flying in day of the game because of the way that the nature of the testing. So, Herbie, if I understand this correctly, or any of you guys, then the Chiefs may not be in position to know until Sunday if this is on, if this keeps stacking up the way it is. And would they then not leave until Sunday? I guess that's a legitimate question for them this week to find out how they're looking at their travel plans, which would, Andy is an adaptable guy, but he's also a creature of habit. That would drive him bonkers to fly in day of the game.
Mitigated by it being a night game, 7:20 game. So, all right. So let's say hello to Lisbeth, Chris, Hence, Richard. Thanks for joining us this morning. Richard joining us from Austria. A gray afternoon in Austria. Very sunny, clear, and breezy here in Kansas City. Let's start with this. Chiefs are 8-1. Raiders are 6-3. Both teams certainly would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. The 8-1 record is the only blemish is, of course, the Raiders' 40-32 victory in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium in Week 5. So let's try to remember what happened that day. Why did the Chiefs lose this game? What were the biggest factors for the Chiefs on that day? Melly, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problems were on defense mostly. They scored 32 points. I understand that they got 8 late, but the thing that I keep thinking about when I think about the game is they got just basically no pressure on Derek Carr. When they did, I think it was like 7 or 8 snaps. One of those was the interception, and that's who Derek Carr is. If you give him time, they've got a lot of weapons. Their wide receivers are really good. He can pick you apart, but if you get pressure on him, he panics. And then the other thing is they had some either miscommunications or, if you believe Steve Spagnuolo, some bad calls on defense. And I'm thinking in particular of the 72-yarder to Ruggs.
Yeah.
And on that play, you had Charvarius Ward one-on-one with Ruggs with no safety over the top. And Ruggs is just going to run by him like he's a fence post. And watching that live, I would assume that that somebody, whether it was Sorensen or Matthew, was supposed to be over the top. But later on, Steve Spagnuolo took the blame, I guess, for that. And you never know, is a coach covering for the players or whatever. But those are the things I remember is no pressure on the quarterback and either miscommunication or bad calls in the back.
I thought there were 3 things. Those 2, and then the offensive line had, I think, its worst game of the season that day too, which is why Schwartz and Fisher potentially both being out is really big, especially with Crosby on the end for the Raiders. That's the matchup I think that the Raiders are looking at, saying this is where we can cause some trouble this week.
And, tying all that together, I mean, they did seem just kind of flat-footed one way or another on defense, right? They couldn't generate the pressure. It seemed like there were some schemes they weren't ready for, some miscommunication in the defensive backfield. I thought it was interesting yesterday during Andy Reid's teleconference. He said it in a very subtle way, but I remember him saying something to the effect of that Spagnuolo will have defenses that are set up for this offense this time, something like that, or that are specific to this defense. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact wording, but it stood out to me as like we were a little off balance, weren't quite in sync for this.
When you look at that game, to me, the thing that jumps out the most, a defense can survive maybe giving up 1 or 2 explosive plays defined as 20 yards or more. The Raiders had a whopping 7 explosive plays, 6 of them coming through the air, 1 of them coming through the ground. And then you're giving up huge chunk yards, 20 yards or more, you're going to lose the game. And they gave up 7 of them that game, and they really clamped down after that Raiders game, because I think it's like they're only averaging maybe 1 or 2 per game since week 5. And that means they've turned around, they fixed all of the communication issues, but you just cannot give up 7 explosive plays in a single game.
Well, I'll add one more to the pile. Even with the explosive plays, the long touchdown passes to Aguilar and to Ruggs happened, I think, in the second quarter, certainly in the first half, and yet it was tied at halftime. It was the Chiefs took those shots, and everybody was surprised because the Chiefs went into that game. One of the storylines going into that game was just how improved the Chiefs' pass defense has been, and then they get burned like that twice in the first half. But it's 24 at halftime, and I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you're thinking, wow, you just took the Raiders' best shot. They came in here and ready to play. Had a playbook design, almost like an Andy Reid scheme used against them. But at halftime, it's tied. The Raiders got the ball to start the second half, and the Chiefs went 3 and out on them. They had to punt back to here we go. Patrick Mahomes, the offense, Chiefs are ready to roll. That started a streak of 4 straight possessions for the Chiefs in which they didn't score. They went punt, and then Patrick Mahomes' only interception of the year. It's the longest stretch without a point by the Chiefs this season. They're playing at home. They're playing against a Raiders defense that really had been average until then, and they could not generate anything offensively for the entire third quarter and then in start of the fourth quarter. And by then, the Raiders had scored 16 unanswered points. They'd taken a 40-24 lead, and yes, they did. The Chiefs did have a touchdown at the end, and the Raiders had to. I thought it was a smart move on Gruden's part to go for a 4th and 1 around midfield on their final possession and not give the ball back to the Chiefs. But that allowed the Raiders to go into victory formation and end the game without giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. So I think it was pretty much a total disaster for the Chiefs that day. I think the Raiders' power running game had a big impact. Also, the Raiders had a huge time of possession advantage, and that's how that's one of the recipes to beat the Chiefs is to keep Patrick Mahomes that offense off the field. But man, to go 4 straight possessions without a score. There've only been 2 other occasions this year where the Chiefs won as many as 3 straight possessions without a score. So that's I think that was pretty major for the Chiefs.
One other thing real quick, Chris Boone just made a really good point, I thought, in the comments about L'Jarius Sneed. They missed him, and Herbie, we expect him to play?
Yeah, well, it depends, because this is remember when you're designated return from practice while you're on injured reserve, because he's still on injured reserve. They have a 21-day window to activate him to the 53-player roster. And since he returned like the week before the bye, that window is probably going to be this week. So if they're going to activate him, it'll probably be Saturday.
And if he can play, he solves some of those problems. He can run with Ruggs in a way that nobody else on that defense can. It's a good point by Chris.
And that's agreeable, because remember, Sam, during training camp, he was hanging with friggin' Tyreek Hill. That was pretty impressive.
Well, one quarterback who's not going to play that Hence Todd's asking about is DeAndre Baker. We should have gotten to him earlier as part of our personnel discussion. But yeah, the Chiefs added a first-round draft pick cornerback from 2019 in DeAndre Baker. He's been assigned to the practice squad, and I suspect we'll see him up with the varsity pretty soon. But Herbie, what's the story on DeAndre Baker? Because there is a heck of a story with this Georgia first round pick.
Well, the story it is, goodness gracious, and the thing about all this was the Giants cut him after all the legal issues popped up down there in Florida. He was charged, I think it was 4 charges of armed robbery, and eventually he was exonerated along with Quentin Dunbar from the Seattle Seahawks. They were involved in that, but Dunbar was exonerated. DeAndre Baker was exonerated, but that situation cost him his job in New York. And if you're the Chiefs, and if you can but if you can sign a former first-round draft pick to your roster, remember, because of COVID this year, your practice squad rules are a lot different from past seasons. So it's not very often you see a first-round player on a practice squad. But because he's there, you have the opportunity to protect him from other teams poaching him. And then if you feel like he's ready, if he's absorbed the system, then you can go ahead and elevate him. And now all of a sudden you've got a first-round cornerback on your active roster. So that was a very savvy move from the Chiefs. Andy Reid said yesterday, hey, we're going to expect DeAndre Baker to work hard and to keep his nose clean. So, he's got a clean slate right now, and he's got to take advantage of it, because he's got to put everything that happened during the offseason behind him. Yes, it cost him his job in New York, but my goodness, to have a second chance with the Kansas City Chiefs and then that locker room where they've got solid leadership, it's a win-win.
I think that's a good point. And is there a comment to be made on players like Le'Veon Bell and DeAndre Baker coming to Kansas City? And it's almost as in the week that Brett Veach contract extension is announced, it's like if the Chiefs want you, the Chiefs are going to get you. And hasn't always been that way in Kansas City. But is that a reflection of a Super Bowl championship and where the Chiefs are right now and what their standing is in the NFL?
It's funny. I remember being gathered around a table with Brett Veach at the Super Bowl, and I can't remember if this was Sam Mellinger's question, but somebody asked him about, basically at some point, like, can you just keep getting players once you have a Super Bowl win? And he was talking about, well, I guess at some point we have to, we won't have enough money, and we haven't really seen that yet. Even with the $7.25 they were from the salary cap peak or whatever it was that they, rejiggered. So there's certainly a level of resourcefulness and imagination in play that I think really, and assertiveness and alertness that is pretty fascinating. And certainly it must have to do with the both winning the Super Bowl and what's understood to be the culture here now under Andy Reid and with top recruiter Patrick Mahomes around.
Yeah, it's not exactly like player first, right? Like it's team first, but the players, I think, pretty obviously get along and have fun. And it's a situation. It used to be the Patriots, right? Like the Patriots used to get all these guys, Corey Dillon, Randy Moss. I mean, some stars. If they had some choices, that's where they went. And now that's the Chiefs, and that is 1,000,000% Patrick Mahomes. It's not all him, but it all starts with him, and it comes down because when. Before he got here, a lot of these other pieces were in place, and they weren't getting all these guys. Those guys were still going to the Patriots or some other teams.
To me, the Baker move is to see what he's got, and it's a long-term play more than a short-term fix because they're getting L'Jarius Sneed back. They still have Breeland. They still have Charvarius Ward. Those are three guys that have played primarily on the outside. DeAndre Baker plays primarily on the outside, but he's a former first-round pick who did not have a great rookie year coming out of Georgia last year, but was good down the stretch. He improved as the season went on. And as a cornerback, that's one of the hardest positions to make that jump from college to the NFL. So that's to be expected that you're going to struggle in your first few games. Now, Pro Football Focus thought he really struggled in his first month or so, but they did rate him pretty well late in the season. But I think the Chiefs are seeing what they have. It's not like – I don't anticipate him making a significant contribution on this season's roster, but I do expect him to be on this team's roster before the season's up. And the reason that's important is because how much do you showcase him? Do you sort of see what you have and then you can make a contract for next season? Breeland's a free agent. We'll see what happens with Charvarius Ward as well. Obviously Snead will be back, but one, that's a position you can never have enough of, but two, I think when you have a first-round talent, a guy that you probably also rated as a first-round talent, it pays a lot of dividends to potentially see what's there for the future, not just for this season.
And that's a fantastic point, Mac, because as you nailed it on the head there, Breeland is a free agent next year. Ward is a restricted free agent next year, and that's the reason why I asked Andy Reid, what do you remember the most of Baker during the pre-draft process? And of course, Andy Reid's he's a good player. I'm sure there was more to it than just you thought he was a good player, but that's the key thing there. A first-round draft pick that you're able to put on your practice squad because you may not necessarily need him this year, but because Breeland's a free agent next year, if you're unable to bring him back, now you got a first-round draft pick you're able to go ahead and plug and play.
Tell you what, too, the Giants really wanted him. They traded into the first round to get him. He was their third first round pick in 2019. That was the they got the quarterback early, and then they traded a fourth and a fifth. I think it was to Seattle to jump into the first round to get DeAndre Baker at number 30.
Blair, they did really want him then, but they really did not want him now, which I don't know what to make of that exactly because the charges were dropped. Joe Judge was asked about it on Monday, and he said, we've moved on from that situation. We moved on from DeAndre Baker. So I don't know exactly what to make of that. If the charges were dropped here, does that mean everything else about him, personality, locker room fit is clean? No, not necessarily. And I think it was a little bit telling that the Giants did not want to bring him back this week.
You're also dealing with a first-year coach there, though. Judge's first year, and he's coming from New England, so maybe he's trying to send a message, hey, if you got anything in your background, that's not the way we're going to roll. I think it's a shame that he was cut before all the legal process worked itself out. And I understand teams like to have a trigger-happy mentality on this. Hey, let's cut the guy. But the process still hadn't played out. When Dunbar was cleared, that should have been their first hint. Let's see how this plays out before we make any kind of move on this guy.
One of the great advantages that a team like the Chiefs has in a situation like this, though, is that there's no investment. Their standard is right here, right now. It used to be down here, right? But their standard is right here now. And if DeAndre Baker gets here, then he's gone. You know what I mean? He's got to rise up to it. This is sort of like a all tides lifting the boats kind of situation. The Chiefs are not they're not tied to him. He needs them more than they need him. So that's one of those situations where you expect the guy, the kid to rise to the moment.
And as a couple of our readers have pointed out, there's the McCole Hardman connection in the locker room. I mean, I imagine I imagine Brett Veach and McCole Hardman had a conversation about DeAndre Baker. McCole Hardman, of course, played at Georgia, so was a college teammate. So,
and Blair, that's where you knew they scouted DeAndre Baker, because if you were watching film on McCole Hardman, it means you were watching Georgia tape. They knew darn well what Baker was doing down there in Georgia.
Right.
They liked him. I mean, for whatever it's worth, I remember having a conversation with somebody who works for the Chiefs. They really liked DeAndre Baker out of the draft. They didn't think that he was a first-round guy. They liked him more, kind of the middle of the second round. But they liked him. They liked him as a player.
Okay, good story in the paper this morning by Sam McDowell on Patrick Mahomes' motivational tactics, or whatever you want to call them, to how what seems to get Patrick Mahomes fired up for a game, and nothing quite does it like a loss, right? And of course he's got this one instance of a loss this year. It just happens to come to a team they knew they were going to play a second time this season. That second time has arrived, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes was. Maybe he's saving his talk for the game or whatever. I don't think his answers were great, but I thought it was a great idea to get into that topic, Sam. And what else did you learn about what motivates Patrick Mahomes? What gets him going for games?
Yeah, I think we had the history that we didn't have to rely on yesterday's meeting with the media, because all of us didn't think that was that great. He didn't really bite on any of the questions about losing. But one of the stories I told in the article was, I remember going to White House last year and talking to his high school coaches, and they said after he lost his last high school football game of his career, him and a couple buddies were on the bus texting the basketball coach wanting to play the next day. And the coach is like, God, what do I do? These guys haven't even practiced. How am I going to play them? And they were so insistent. He did play them on a Saturday afternoon. And he still has a video clip, actually, from a play that Patrick Mahomes had made in that game. Because he just thought it was something. It was actually a pass. He thought it was something he'd never seen before. And it's funny, we've especially this summer with Last Dance, you saw a fantastic athlete, one of the best of all time, try and work his way into motivation by at times even making stuff up. I don't think that Mahomes is quite that way, although we've seen him do the counting on his for what was the ranked fourth in the NFL top 100, the Mitchell Trubisky thing. But I don't know that is as motivating to him as it is. He's just kind of pointing it out. But I do think losing is very motivating to him. You can tell it just really irks him. It irks him when he doesn't play well, but especially when it's a loss. And the two best examples of it were last year. He tore up those two teams that they lost to in the regular season with the Titans and Texans. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, and he was hurt in those games too, right? He had the ankle injury from the Jaguars in week 1, and this was before he'd hurt his knee at Denver. But he wasn't 100% in those games, especially that Colts game. He was, just not there. Or I'm sorry, not the Colts game. What am I thinking?
Well, he came back in the Titans game, and that was his first game back from the knee injury, and he definitely wasn't quite 100% yet.
Right, you're right. That's right. So
I always think about this though. Like, I'm sorry, just real quick. Like, and Sam just mentioned it, but that Lamar Jackson thing, the ego required to find disrespect in being called the fourth best in the world at what you do is surpassed only by the talent required to be like justifiably disrespected by being the fourth in the world. Like, that is one of the most incredible things that it blows my mind every time I think about it.
I still think, and I'll kind of throw this out to you guys to see how you gauge it. I still think he does that stuff more to kind of point it out as opposed to pregame getting like amped up because of something like that.
That's probably true. It's a little showy,
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, just to tie some of this together, Sam Mellinger, you made this point either on a podcast we did earlier or on Twitter, but there's no way he's not cooking up a bus type celebration right now. And he's going to blow it off after the game, exactly as you laid it out by saying it was really a tribute to Gus, the bus driver at White House. I mean, there's going to be something like that. And that we all know is his tell, right? It's just like, and then leave it hanging and then go on to the next question.
100%. Yep.
Well,
And you and Sam will be fighting over who's writing that after the game.
I'm pretty sure Sam is going to text me after this and say, I'm calling that right now.
I got the bus driver.
At another angle.
yeah. Well, keep in mind that column won't be posted until about midnight on Monday into Monday.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Stars award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Speaking of bus rides and feeling disrespected, I was a little surprised that, and listen, we've gotten almost 30 minutes into this show without bringing up the story that kind of dominated the early part of the week, and that's of course, the victory lap that the Raiders took at Arrowhead Stadium. I've been reading some Raiders Las Vegas newspaper and some Raiders commentary that Chiefs fans are making too much of this, and I don't, maybe so, but it's Chiefs Raiders. Maybe if it's another opponent, it's not as interesting or fun, but it's just fun, right? It's fun because it's a Chiefs Raiders, and it's fun because it's John Gruden, and it's fun. It's just fun for many reasons. But I think it wasn't a big deal when it happened, and nobody seemed to know about it when it happened. It was not until you started hearing whispers about it later in the week after the loss, and then as the weeks went on, it became a little bit bigger story. And now, of course, with the Raiders here, it did dominate the Kansas City talk, sports talk, in the first couple of days of this week. So let's do this instead of just saying how we feel about what happened. I wanted to ask you guys if you can come up with some sort of, pick any sport in any occasion of perceived disrespect that you particularly enjoyed or were offended by or made you feel something. And I've got a couple in mind that from college basketball and one from baseball, but I want to hear you guys and see if you guys had come up with any sort of moments of sports disrespect, and then maybe at the end we can compare it to what John Gruden did at Arrowhead Stadium. So, Melly, this is your wheelhouse here.
It really is, and so I am thankful to you for setting me up like this. And oh, look at this! It's a list I made.
Oh, God.
Well, you probably covered all of them that we'll all have.
Right. So first of all, like preemptively, I've got Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes driving the bus in the end zone this weekend. That's
a future procedure.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to save my favorite for last. But you remember Todd Haley wagging his finger at Josh McDaniels? That was a good time. Pedro Serrano and Sam Cassell with the
yeah, I remember that.
What do you call that?
I said onions. You can do whatever you want. Randy Moss, who drove Joe Buck nuts. Baker Mayfield. I just was reminded of this one on Twitter the other day. Baker Mayfield with when KU wouldn't shake his hand.
That's a great one, right? At midfield pregame. Yeah.
Do you remember Kendricks Morales in the playoffs? I can't remember if it was 14. I think it was 15 against the Astros. And I guess somebody with Houston had done this move across the neck, and he hit a home run. And when he stepped on the plate, he did that. That was a good time. Joe Kelly. This one was great. The crybaby thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was great. He actually later posted pictures. There's a mural in LA of him doing the crybaby thing, and he stood in front of that mural doing the crybaby thing and posted it on Instagram. It was great. When I was a kid, I have this distinct memory, and I don't know, it's a long time ago, so maybe my memory got confused or something, but I have a distinct memory of being at a KU Oklahoma basketball game, and it went into overtime, and Oklahoma just smoked KU. This is in the 80s. Oklahoma smoked KU in the overtime, and Billy Tubbs calls a timeout with a few seconds left. Nobody huddles. They just walk around the arena like flipping the bird at everybody. That was amazing. I don't know how disrespectful this is, but Bo Jackson, you remember when he threw out Harold Reynolds and he did like the little gun thing? And then my favorite of all time, and thank you again for letting me talk like this. My favorite of all time was Scottie Pippen dunking on Ewing in the playoffs. Do you remember that?
That's on my list.
And then he like walked over him.
It's amazing.
And then walked over to Spike Lee and said, "Sit your ass down," or whatever. That's the best one. That is the best one. So, all right. Thank you for allowing me to filibuster.
Oh, Andrew Leifer reminds us of a recent one. The Monmouth player who stole the ball, was it from Tristan Enaruna or whoever it was that was dribbling out the last couple of seconds, and the Monmouth player comes up from behind, steals the ball, and goes down for a dunk in a 50-point game.
It was mad. It was like, giving the Allen Fieldhouse crowd guff about it himself.
Yeah. All right, Vahe, what do you have one or two?
Well, I got
follow that up.
Sorry, guys.
My list here, it's not as elaborate, but it made me think of one idea. The whole concept here is the way people concoct disrespect, right? I mean, that's part of this whole deal, and that's part of the core of this week's theme too. So it just got me thinking about one of the greatest concoctions I ever saw, which was Blair. You might remember this. Yeah, you other kids might not, but Missouri-Oklahoma football game, mid-'90s, back in the day, where you could roam the halls at Oklahoma, even if you were covering Missouri, and go just into assistant coaches' offices. It was a long time ago.
I know where you're going with this one.
So I'm down there to preview some stuff, and there's locker room material that's come out about Gary Pinkel ripping Oklahoma's coaches, and it's like they don't even have a staff that we saw in the MAC. They're terrible. They're just, their defense is awful. All this stuff, and it's clearly like, well, I didn't hear any of that. And so George Schrader and I walk in the hallway, and I think we actually found the bulletin board, and it was stuff written like a Far Side comic, like backwards letters and random capitalization. They put Mike the Armand's byline on it from the Star. So that's funny enough. But then we just walk into Mike Stoops' office and say, "Hey, Mike, none of this is true." And he just kind of smiled and goes, "I don't know anything about it." It turned out a graduate assistant on it. But the punchline is going in and talking to Oklahoma players after that, and they're talking about the disrespect Missouri showing them. And I just tell the one player, I can't remember who it was, I said, this isn't true. This is actually made up. He goes, "Well, it's too late." It's too late. That's what I remember. And it was all reinforced by watching the Last Dance, of course, right? Jordan's amazing ability to take the nugget of a sliver of a germ of a perceived slight and make it into, a holy war. It was just unbelievable.
All right.
So
I've got a few as well. The only one that's been mentioned so far that was on my list, the Scottie Pippen should be on everybody's list. But one that involves a hometown kid, AI stepping over Tyronn Lue in the NBA Finals was memorable. Damian Lillard with the wave bye to the Thunder in the playoffs is on my list. My favorite Jordan moment is when he gave Mutombo the finger wag back after he dunked on him. And then Reggie Miller's choke to Spike Lee after he scored 8 points in 15 seconds. That's probably my favorite one.
That's a great list.
They're all, I will say, the NBA rules this category. And they also are now doing it on social media. Damian Lillard is incredible on social media, taunting guys. I think he invited Patrick Beverley to Mexico after the Clippers got eliminated this year. The NBA embraces this stuff. And you started off by saying, hey, stuff we liked or maybe stuff we were offended by. I'm offended by none of this. All of this needs to happen more often.
100%. Yeah.
All right, Herbie. We have nothing in the NFL, I think, so far.
Herbie is going to be the guy who's offended by some of this, I feel like.
I actually have two. I actually had Scottie Pippen dunking over Ewing because that was like during back in the day when I was really into the NBA. But I've got two examples of not necessarily perceived slights. They were slights. Pistons, 1991. Bulls just swept them and they walked off the floor.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, with 3 seconds to go or something, right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it was just with the game wasn't over. Didn't they walk off the floor?
The game was not over. Isaiah Thomas led the march off the field or off the court. And, of course, the Bulls went on to defeat the Lakers in the NBA Finals that year. But that situation came back to haunt Isaiah Thomas because in 1992, when they started putting the Dream Team together, who was the main person who said, I don't want Thomas on the team? Michael Jordan. So that perceived slight, or not necessarily perceived, it was a slight to the Bulls, cost Isaiah Thomas a shot at the Dream Team. Second one, hey, I love Sean Payton. 2018 playoffs up in Minnesota. Will Lutz just kicks the go-ahead kick with like 25 seconds left. He thinks the game's over, so he turns to the crowd and starts doing the Skol chant. What happens? Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs hook up for the Minneapolis Miracle, and Sean Payton had an egg on his face. So that slight to the Chiefs or to the Vikings fans came back to haunt him as well.
All right, I'm glad you brought up the NFL. Andrew Leifer brings up another great one when T.O. ran out to the star.
Yes.
That was great. Terrific. My baseball example was just the Jose Bautista bat flips in the playoffs. Those are I think those are fantastic, and I think everybody should do a bat flip. But I know the opposing team takes a little bit of offense to that, and you're likely to get your next batter plucked with a pitch because of that. But I guess my all-time favorite. We're going to return to a place where we have visited a couple times in this conversation, and that's Oklahoma. And it actually involves Oklahoma. The slight came at Kansas. This was in the mid-1980s. I hadn't come to Kansas City yet, but I've read about this, that Oklahoma and Billy Tubbs, rest in peace, Billy Tubbs, clinched the Big 8 championship with a victory over the Jayhawks at Allen Fieldhouse. And as the Kansas fan, the final buzzer goes and fans are clearing out, but Oklahoma doesn't leave the court. What they do is they bring ladders and scissors onto the floor, and they cut the nets at Allen Fieldhouse on the road after clinching first place in the Big 8. And I just thought that is the biggest slight I've ever heard. But that was classic Billy Tubbs, and that was Big 8 basketball in the 1980s. But the NBA, you guys are right. That is so much of this is NBA theater, and I don't think what John Gruden did in Week 5 rises to the level of any of this. And it's just a little petty. I don't even know if his players were on board with doing it, or would be on board with doing it. But it's something John Gruden decided to do. And if this game ends up being played Sunday night, that'll absolutely be a storyline for Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth on the show during the broadcast. So,
do you think any video exists of that bus ride?
How could somebody with a cell phone camera not have had that somewhere? I haven't seen it though.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that. Sam, put up another tweet asking for the video.
Yeah, if the bus driver won't reach out, maybe somebody's not.
We asked John Gruden, I think it was Adam Teicher asked him on the teleconference yesterday. He sort of backdoored a question about the victory lap and just said, why was that game so important to you guys? And he said, Well, I don't know if you guys have been, I should say, I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, but it was pretty close. He said, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but we've sucked lately. We haven't been very good. So when we win a game, it's a big deal around here. But the reason it matters is all of us know Andy Reid well enough and his answers to know he is legitimately pissed about this thing.
100%.
No, I was surprised by his response when he was asked about it on I guess on Monday, right? Interesting. So, all right, guys, let's leave it here and bid farewell and thank Beth Welsh, our producer, for putting the show together. So for Sam, Vahe, Sam, and Herbie, I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Thanks for joining us this morning, and we will be back about an hour and a half after the Sunday game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Take care.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Pickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, Sam McDowell, and Herbie Teope for talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage that comes with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email at bkerkhoff@kcstar.com and I'll get you to the right place. Whether it's a sports pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Friday with another episode.